possibly describe how I feel about Brian Solis without embarrassing myself. I first interviewed him in 2006, and he was and remains one of the smartest and most gracious interview subjects I ever had. Brian, as known to everyone in this room, has started out with a groundbreaking book that he co-authored with Jeff Livingston, Now Is Gone. And that was really, I think, the predictor of so much of what has happened in the last several years. He looked at the things that are now old hat to us, but in a very important way still relevant. The rise of networking, the power of social conversations, their implications for business. He's, of course, now a principal at Altimeter Group. He's the author of 4 more best-selling books on social business, including the upcoming, can I mention this?
Sure.
Okay. The upcoming X, which is out in January, right? Good.
I hope so.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to keep him off stage any longer. Please welcome to the Social ShakeUp, So, this has been an interesting year.
To say the least.
I'm going to put you on the spot right away.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, with the much publicized, heavily memed, I'm sure that probably half the room blogged about this, Scott Monty left Ford in the spring, and on his way out said essentially that marketing had taken over social, if I'm not being unfair to Scott. Does this mean the end of social business?
Oh my God, wait a minute, hold on. The coffee is still digesting. Look, that's a really hard question to answer, but I'll be, first of all, I have to say that I know Robin's going to ask me some tough questions because that's what you do at 8:30 in the morning. So I just want to set the stage that I'm going to answer them honestly, and I don't want to. I'm here because of you, and I'm here, and I'm still here because of you, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
But things are really interesting right now, to say the least. And Scott isn't the only one who has left because marketing or advertising has taken over social, or the execs haven't figured out the power of social. He's just the most highly profiled person who has left recently. That doesn't mean that it's the end of social. It just means that we have to figure out what we want to do with social in our job and either do it or leave. So it's pretty profound. We're at a crossroads right now, but I can tell you that after all these years, that a lot of us got comfortable with what social should be, but never quite got it to what it could be, right? And I know Scott was pushing. I had an opportunity to work with him a couple times, and I got to work with their CMO, and you could see it internally, that the customer at Ford was paramount. That there was no doubt about what Ford's intentions were. It was just mired in politics of who does what, who owns what, who funds what. And Scott really, really, really tried as hard as he could and realized that at the end of the day, that energy was probably better spent elsewhere.
Well, I know from having read What's the Future of Business that you're also a student of history. I mean, every great movement is going to have not a retrenchment, but there's always a reaction. So I know we wanted to talk about the Empire Striking Back. Where does this put social now? Is it baked into the organization and such a major part of it that there's no going back? Or have things like programmatic marketing essentially turned back the clock? I'm really pushing this, aren't I? We got to talk about other things.
So I love the title of the session, by the way. Nicely done. The Empire Striking Back. So there's probably those in the room who have no idea who I am. And so I'm just going to answer this question with giving you a quick history lesson. Back in the day, Jeremiah and others here in the room, we all saw the promise of what it could be. Mm-hmm. It didn't have anything to do with technology, right? The technology was just a bridge to do something differently, to go on a new road. It had everything to do with recognizing that a business has never been human. Nothing about it, right? Doc Searle's a good friend of ours. He had once said that there's nothing about relationships in CRM, right? If anything, we use technology to further distance ourselves from customers. And the same is true if you ask a company today, like customer service, how do you define being more human in engagement? They'll say, well, we have voice recognition service now. So, instead of having to push buttons, you can talk to a system and we'll automate your way around until we drop your call. But the idea was that we just could be more human. Some of us are still fighting the same battle we were doing back in the early 2000s. To say Twitter doesn't make you social, Facebook doesn't make you social. If you use all of these new apps when they come out, it doesn't make you social. But if you really try to be transparent and you try to talk to somebody and you do all the things behind the scenes, right? Like say we should respond without going through PR or through legal.
Right.
That's the core of what makes a business social. And I think a lot of us lost sight of that. And Scott Monty never lost sight of that. He pushed until the very end to make a company very human, and he did fantastic work. Ford became more human. And Scott Mullally at the time or Alan Mullally at the time was one of the best CEOs to sort of embody that. But we don't even have that in a lot of businesses where executives really understand it. They just say, oh, go do your social thing. Right. Go tweet or take some Instagrams or let's get a clever agency and come up with some stills for Vines. But I don't know that we ever really set out for what that purpose or the mission was going to be. Why are we using this stuff in the first place?
Okay, if you ask most CEOs, and I know you talk to a lot of them, do you see the future of your company as more responsive, listening more to the customers? I mean, you look at all the IBM data on this, as being more authentic, walking the walk on core values. They would all say yes to that, right? And that's essentially the cultural value that social brings to the party.
Social brings so much to the party, and we all get it. That's why we're here, right? I think we're here to learn more from one another. I think we're here to learn and inspire one another. But I'll tell you, you're right. I talk to executives all the time. And there's either two ways this conversation is going to go. There's a romance with social business and what it could be, or there's just this complete mystery of what it is, and you better tell me and justify it right now. And IBM has done some of the best research out there on what CEOs and CMOs and CIOs are dealing with. Right? And I too have done some research around what we call digital transformation. It's this idea of going through this change. Right? If you ask a CEO what keeps you up at night, they'll say things like technology, it's getting more complex, we don't understand it. If you ask a CMO what keeps them up at night, it'll be something along the same lines, but they'll say, we don't know our digital customer as well as we would like. But you do. Everybody in this room knows their digital customer, right? And you guys are the secret or the key to changing business for the better. And there's this gap between us and what the C-suite wants to do. I've never met an executive who said, you know what, Brian? We really don't care about our customers at all. Yet every fight that we have, right, everything that we have to justify says the opposite.
Right.
Every investment that's made today in technology that distances us from people says the opposite. So if we were to be truly customer-centric, what would that mean? That would mean that CEOs and CMOs and CIOs and us would have to put people first. And I'll share just something for the geeks in the room. Every couple of years, Facebook has a conference called F8. It's for their developers, it's for brands, and it talks about where the network is going, right? I mean, Facebook, love it or hate it, I mean, is probably the most prolific example of what happens when people get together online, right? And they said that they were moving to a philosophy of people first. Not technology first, but people first. And that's why you see all of this unbundling and all these experiments with apps and features, is because they're trying to improve how we communicate, discover, share for us.
Right.
And then build the network around this. So that's a lot we could learn. And I'll share one more stat. I know it's a long answer.
Well, that's one CEO at least who gets
Well,
it.
he definitely gets it. This stat blew me away. Dan from Discover, who's in this room, we met last year, and he helped me work on this research. So thank you, Dan, wherever you are. I asked companies, are you going through this digital transformation? And then I had to say, this is how I'm going to define digital transformation. Changing based on the fact that you realize that this digital customer is different, and you're making investments to understand what's different and pursue it. So I gave them that definition, and I said, so are you going through digital transformation? And 88% of the companies that I studied said yes, emphatically, yes. 88%, who sees a stat like that? That was through the roof, right? So then I said, so have you studied your digital customer? And only 25% said yes. And I think some of them were lying. But that's such a small number in comparison to 88. So 88% of companies were going through digital transformation, but only 25% knew why. And so that's a number that should inspire every one of us to say, why? Why? Go back to your office and say, why am I doing this? Not to question it and just throw caution to the wind, but to say, there's a purpose, there's a reason, because there's a human being on the other side of that screen. And I'm the key master for those Ghostbuster geeks out there. I'm the person who represents the bridge. And so since Robin leaked the next book.
You heard it here first. You can tweet that.
There's something that I call the embrace. And really, it's what we all do. I don't think we appreciate how amazing and important our work is. But when you talk to someone else, that's an opportunity for the embrace. I have your attention, you have my attention. What am I going to do with it? And I don't think we take that question seriously enough, right? Once I have your attention and you have mine, what happens next? What happens next, right? And we do that in relationships, we do that in friendships, but what's different about this? It's the same thing. What happens next? And we don't know. We play it by ear. We have editorial calendars. We have things that create so much structure that it doesn't allow for the embrace to unfold naturally. And that's, honestly, Robin, I think that's the fight we have to go back to.
So in marketers' terms, the embrace is the conversion, or is that something completely different? Are the CEOs looking at this too transactionally? Is that part of the reason that there's a gap between their perceptions of digital transformation and customer experience?
The problem with any executive is, well, there's a lot. Where do you start? Is that I honestly believe that I don't think they think they're selling to human beings. I really don't. I had a fun experiment. So here's another little news breaking thing. You're going to see in a few weeks an official partnership between myself and Gaping Void. How many people in the room know Gaping Void? All right. Well, thanks for applauding over there. That's not enough. So we're going to have to change that. So Hugh McLeod and Gaping Void, he's a tremendous artist. He's been in the startup scene forever. We've done work together. We did WTF together. He's a great cartoonist, and he just captures the soul and essence and wit of any situation. And we have a little ebook coming out together. We do these little things every now and then. It's almost like the Ralph Steadman, Hunter S. Thompson relationship, where
I know who you're talking about.
Words and crazy images. And one of the things that we did was we came up with this image of robots saying just nothing other than, this is who CEOs think they're marketing to. Because they're just statistics, right? They're They're groups of folks that register not like human beings, but as numbers and demographics and psychographics, and that's the problem. And this is why, for anybody who's ever seen me talk before, I will always talk about the TV show Undercover Boss. I watch that show even though it has the same ending every episode, because there's that gift of empathy. And so that's the embrace. Every single show has something along the lines of an executive telling the masses, I forgot what it was like. I forgot what it was like to be a customer. I forgot what it was like to be an employee. I forgot what it was like to be a human being. And they don't say this because I'm putting words in their mouth, because all I do all day long is go from meeting to meeting. I talk to stakeholders and shareholders. I make decisions based on PowerPoints and matrices. But I don't know you, Robin, and what moves you and why you keep coming back. But I should. And if you talk to my buddy over here, Jill, she should know too, even though she's in a different department. And that's about going back to base. That's the embrace. And then we can talk about transactions, right? And look, we're measured by those things. But the embrace says, but I care, and you're going to feel it.
But social does allow us to measure the embrace, right? That's what's new, is that we can actually track that non-transactional behavior, the connected behavior so well. Let me change the subject a little bit, because as you know, we're going to be talking later today about our survey, and we surveyed many of you in the room about the value that social is placing on your own careers. I think a lot of what distinguishes our folks is that they have the ability to inspire others within their organization, even if they eventually do go to work at Shift Communications. You know, I mean, as I thought at the time, you know, they didn't cut his head off and put it on a pike. You know,
right.
He fought the good fight, and now he gets to reap the rewards. But anyway, enough about that. You've said that there are only two ways to change behavior: to inspire it or manipulate it, right? What's social business in that context?
So, for the context of that quote, there are two ways to inspire behavior: inspire it or influence behavior, inspire it or manipulate it. And it's pithy, but it's true. And if you think about a lot of the marketing that we do today, I think we're manipulating behavior, right? We're cool, we're funny, we're entertaining, we're in the moment, we're real time, we're trendy. But I don't think we really recognize what we actually want to do with behavior. And that's the power of social business. Social business, again, if you go back to your work and you just sit down and you lean back in your chair and you say, what am I really trying to do, right? All these tools, the fact that there'll be more tools. I mean, Jeremiah, who's in the room, you know, and I were talking about this new service that Kevin Rose just started called Tiny, which is yet another service that I'm sure brands are going to try to figure out how to jump on. There's always going to be that.
Right.
But a lot of us don't know why. What would our presence be? And why would you want to follow us on there? And what would you get out of it? What would we get out of it? A social business is different than social media, right? A social business is a business that recognizes that it could be open and more transparent, more human, more engaging, and it's a good thing, right? A social business could be a social business without technology, by the way. But
it doesn't scale.
It doesn't scale. But at least you can go to your core and recognize why you're a social business. I'm doing work with a really big brand right now, and we had a real big discussion about why did we even do this, you know? And it was sort of the same struggle that Scott, I'm sure, had between digital marketing, communications, and social, and where social fit in this. And what I think was missing was the idea that all of that could be part of a social business. It's just not run by any one person. It just means that the work that we're doing today is bigger than I think we realize. That you're changing your company to be less corporate, less I can't talk to you unless it goes through a press department, and more about, look, I have something that you don't have without me. And the same is true the other way. And so if I can understand that, then I can influence that behavior. So I talk about the art of engagement. The art of engagement stands for actions, reactions, and transactions. If you could think about, once I have your attention, what do I do next? Right? And it's not just about convergence or converting someone to click or buy or this. Social, as you said, gives us the ability to listen, learn, and track and measure. So if you could inspire behavior, what would it look like? What if you could also inspire how somebody felt when they left? Because that's how you measure true engagement. It's not about what you did next. It's about how you felt, right, after that. Because you're going to share it, right? We all complain on social media one time or another. Some of us more than others, and I know who you are. There's an old joke that only social media experts have bad flights. But what if we do that because it's cathartic, we vent, that's why it's called venting, right? And social gives us that power. But none of those things ever go away, even if you delete it, right? It just goes into this index, this cloud, this great cloud in the sky, this social consciousness of where businesses, essentially that's their brand. All that stuff that's shared is there for people to see. And social gives us that ability. If you really want to hear it, you can see it and you can feel it. You're supposed to be moved by it. You're supposed to be inspired by it. It's not about measuring how many times somebody said bad versus good. It's about taking all of those bad conversations and saying, what the fuck are we doing wrong? And how do we change that? And I'm talking to you, cable service providers. You're supposed to not just tweet back and solve the problem. You're supposed to solve the root.
Right.
And that social makes us think about that customer service shouldn't just be reacting. The engagement should be proactively conditioning people to have a great experience and then proactively sharing that experience to counter all of that other stuff. And that changes the whole concept of what social media could be about, or what customer support or service could be about, or what loyalty programs could be about. People don't share great experiences as much as they share bad experiences, and it's only natural, but what if we had something to do about that? We have to influence behavior. We have to inspire the type of behavior we want to see. That's what makes our job better, more important for the future. Stop reacting and start cultivating this community. And the last bit about this is, look, the one thing about what makes Social ShakeUp special, I mean, other than you, and I come out here for you, of course, but, you know, a community, a lot of us, there's a famous novelist who once said that I can't imagine a world in which I'm not the center of, right? And it's hard to think about. Brands, I think, are guilty of this too, right? And I call it the ego system. We're all accidental narcissists. You know, we can't tell you the number of selfies I've seen in the last hour. But that's not a bad thing. None of us came out to say, look, I want to be egocentric. But none of us have either come out and said, I should be not the center of my universe. I'm part of a community. And our purpose and our mission is the center of what we're trying to do together. And that makes it more important. It makes it more important than any one of us. But what we do together becomes really important. So
social is a means to an end, right? I mean, it's really, if used correctly, it's not about technology, and it's even not about content creation. It's about solving problems, real problems in the world, right?
Yeah.
We have here, and you'll hear from the head of social media for the Centers for Disease Control, for example. We've also got conversations going on about cities as online communities, about healthcare, about energy policy. And it's really about taking this collaborative global thing, but plugging it into solutions that will make our planet better and make sure that our kids have a place to live.
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah. Well, you have to care, right? I mean, you have to care. All too often, in fact, by the time I go back to email, I'm sure I'll have another 30 or 40 infographics in there about, hey, you know, we have an infographic and you should stop everything you're doing. And share it.
Go for it, Brian.
And it's something I call mediumalism. It's just a clever term to just talk about the fact that we jump on everything. Infographics is a new press release, for example. It's just this idea that it's not a bad thing, but what if you had to think about that quote, manipulate it or inspire it? So every content piece that you're going to create, whether it's a video, an infographic, a tweet, you're faced with the question, I'm about to publish something. What do I want to do with it? And what do I want to have happen next? And what do I want somebody to feel and do with this, right? There's a reason why BuzzFeed and Upworthy are all on your Facebook streams, right? And Facebook is actually trying to combat the fact that it is in all of your streams, right? 27 cats who have had a worse day than you. Number 11 will blow your mind. There's a true science to that, and they've figured this out. They know what they want to do, what they want you to do. When you see this, they want you to share it, right? And then they want you to keep clicking. And so we have the same sort of job. Content is a means. Social is a means. So like you said, what's the end, right? What do you want to have happen? And how will you feel good? Not just because you feel good and you did what you set out to, but because someone on the other side of it felt good too. This is what a relationship is about. It's mutually beneficial. I come back because I want to, and you come back because you want to. Imagine a world in terms of content, right, or social engagement, or social strategy, where all of that stuff was true, because that's the core of social business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think at that point, when all of us have made that point, along with Brian, who can share things and get millions of people to respond, I think that's what's going to convince the C-suite that we're doing something valuable. And we are. We're already doing it, and that's what we're going to talk about. Anyway, we've got questions. We've got time for about 1 or 2 questions for Brian. Do we have the roving mic?
The roving mic.
The roving mic. If not, just stand up and identify yourselves. I think that we're getting the roving mic there in the back, right? Yeah. Anyone would like to ask a question? If not, I'm going to keep on rolling, and you'll just have to accept what I do.
But not all at once, everybody, please. Just one person up here.
One of the things that we're going to be talking about a lot at ShakeUp is the importance for your personal career to have this expertise and these cultural values. You've had a lot of changes in your career, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were those all about? And were they inspired by technology or something else entirely?
So Robin and I have known each other for a long time, and I have gone through several changes. And I'm going to answer this considering you, right? And the reason why I did is because the world is changing pretty fast. And what I realize is that every time it starts to show a new sign, it really is just a stepping stone to something else. And I realized somewhere along the lines, so I came up, I'm a little bit older than a lot of you, I came up in a time where you were supposed to do this, because this is the way it's always been done. And you follow these rules, and you communicate this way, and transparency and openness, we don't do that because we have a legal team to prevent that, and we're still dealing with that. And I thought, coming up in my career, I thought I was a misfit, and to be honest, I actually thought I was an asshole. I really thought I was bucking the system because I'm rock and roll, you can't tell me what to do. And then I realized that had nothing to do with it. All I was actually trying to do was change my role to be more meaningful for someone else, not just being a misfit for the sake of being a misfit. And so I adopted a philosophy in my career, and it was question everything. Question everything. Why do we have to do it this way? Why do we click a disk in Microsoft Word to save when most people today have never even seen a disk in their life? And I saw a great cartoon with the kid that went up to his dad holding a floppy disk that said, Dad, how cool, you 3D printed a save icon. And what if somebody at Microsoft said, why do we do this? Or why do we have 16 remotes in our living room to control a piece of glass, right? Until you start to question why, we just go. And my career has followed that. Why? Why couldn't we do something better? So I have this saying, asking why leads to what if. And what if leads to what's next. Because we're all, this is why I'm here. And aside from Robin, having the opportunity to sit next to you, is this is that time in all of our careers where the job you have isn't the job that your company actually needs. And that's a great thing. Because all of us today can actually change businesses, not to just be more social, but all of the benefits that come with being more social, right? Human beings, things that matter, things that give you goosebumps, things that inspire you in ways that make you love your job, make you love what you do, and all of that has to be defined. There isn't a playbook for this, everybody. There isn't a top 10 ways to do this. This is all of our things to be defined. I'm still going through it. I'll change a million more times. But it's because I'm really finally okay being in my own skin, recognizing that we all have a role to play in how we change business, or how we change government, or how we change education. And it's our work that allows us to push forward. Because if we don't, right, people will push back. People will always push back. But together, we can make enough strides to change things in ways that matter. And that's kind of what keeps me getting up every day.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
You better come back next year.
I will. I will. Thank you, everybody.